So this is a Q&A session on the 24th of September 2024. And it's a Q&A session for a course called Conflict and You that will be 5 weeks long and will be starting on the 1st of October. So thank you for reminding me to record, Lottie. I'm just jumping in with questions. Yeah. Maybe I'll just pause here briefly because I've kind of lost my thread and see if there's anything that's come up for you, Fran or Tamsin.
Is it on Zoom calls? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it will be on Zoom. Yeah, it will be online. So the sessions will be 2 hours long, and they will start at the time that this started. This is also why we put it here, because the idea was that if people can make the course time, then they might be able to make this.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and then another thing that we will bring to it is kind of ideas of somatic practices, so including, for one, pendulation, and also staying with sensations in the body, which is something.
What's somatic mean?
What's
somatic and pendulation?
So somatic means concerning the body. So tuning in to what's happening in us, and pendulation means that it's not going to be about like pushing to a certain kind of place, but instead a gentle kind of going to the edge, feeling and going back, and doing that several times. So there's a kind of a back and forth movement that also helps us to stay regulated, essentially, because our nervous systems can get overwhelmed. It can just get very intense inside, in particular when we deal with things that might have to do with something that was, for lack of a better word, traumatic in the past, as in it felt overwhelming at the time and we didn't feel like we had the resources to deal with it. And that can be bigger things that anybody would recognize. Yeah, of course, that was stressful, like you were in a fire or something like that. Or it could be small things. And it says my internet connection is unstable, so I hope you can hear me. It could be small things that might not be seen as so traumatic, like the parents just weren't available on an emotional level or something like that. Yeah. And yeah, so that's the pendulation, to kind of help us stay in a place where we can go to the places that feel stressful, but we also practice the coming back and the going there and the coming back. That's the idea of these things. And why this helps with conflict is because many times when we're in conflict, and please pause me, stop me if it's enough for now and you want to take a pause or you want to ask a question. Many times when we're in conflict, we get stuck in some way. Either we continue ruminating and we continue thinking about what is it that we need to do, or what's wrong with the other person, or I don't know why this is happening, and then we can have all these ideas about the systems that are oppressing me and other people, or the trauma that's affecting me or other people. Like, we can have lots of thoughts and ideas, but recognizing that in many ways, a lot of the things we do are actually also ways that we stop ourselves from being with whatever might be inside of us that could be stressful in some way. So we do lots of things to put our energy elsewhere that supposedly is going to help us solve this situation. And I'm not sure if I'm being clear, so stop me and ask questions. Yes. Yeah, Fran. And Lottie. You're muted, Fran. Could you unmute?
I think what you're saying, what boils down to, we have to acknowledge our stress.
Yeah, and it's
recognize it.
Yeah, there's something very important about that. And I do believe that even in situations where we might be thinking, oh, it's just this like technical issue that we have to solve, if for whatever reason this is hard, there must be something else involved. at least on some side, like how come we cannot sit down and listen to it, listen to each other in calmness, or how come we're not wanting to give, like how come we don't want to take the other person's perspective or something like that. Yeah, so the idea is that many times in conflict we do things that inadvertently, because most of the time what we want is we want to be seen for who we are, we want to be accepted, we want to be connected, we want to be understood, we want to be respected, we want all these things, but we do inadvertently things that either predict that it's not going to happen and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, or we do things even that are just very unlikely that we will get these things. And also we don't want to meet the other person that way. So we want to be accepted, treated with kindness and gentleness and forgiveness and understanding and all these things first before anybody else, before we're willing ever to give something. So there's a certain kind of stuckness. So it's about trying to gently kind of loosen the knot a bit that we can get ourselves into. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, Lottie.
Could you say something about how we work together as a group and what the approach to sort of the group and the structure?
Yeah. Yeah, I can. And I also want to see if Joel wants to say anything, or I
Yeah,
should.
please go ahead. I'm happy to listen.
Okay, good. So as I said, we will have the 2-hour sessions, and there will always be a lot of exercises and practice. So of course there will be some input that Joe and I give, but also we will always break up in smaller breakout rooms to see to either talk about things or do small exercises or do role plays to try out the things that we're talking about. There will be journaling exercises. Also because we recognize that if, in particular, if I as a person am less inclined to share in a group because I maybe find it harder, or I also just enjoy listening to others. Sometimes it can be difficult to really get in touch with what's there for me. So we also want to include the journaling because it just gives that space to really tune into just what's going on in me before kind of connecting to other people and hearing what they might have to say as well. And also we will offer, of course, everything is an invitation, small meditation exercises that we can do each week. They're supposed to support what we're doing.
And we also back it all up with quite a detailed workbook, so that if you want to delve into things a little bit more or follow up links, videos or other papers or books or whatever, it's there, and it supports the inputs that we give during the sessions and offers greater depth of information. We want to focus as much as possible in the sessions on the practical, on the talking to one another, excuse me, on the practicing. And we invite you to follow it up afterwards or beforehand if possible, if we can get the workbooks out in time. So, Fran.
Ask while that person's coming in. Is today's session 2 hours?
I only scheduled it for 1 hour, so this is a Q&A, and I didn't think that we would take 2 hours.
Okay.
Can I add something about my experience of being part of the group? I think one of the things I've gained from doing this course is more self-knowledge, to understand myself in conflict. How do I personally respond. And I had this sense that trust is built up so that when we get into smaller groups, we can be a little bit more open and explore. So a sense of safety, because conflict isn't something that I would like to move towards. I've always avoided it, but being able to feel safe enough with a group of people has allowed that self-knowledge and the learning to grow.
And I just also want to briefly say hi to Jay Patel. Thank you for being there. If you want, you can turn on your video. And you're also welcome to just listen or to ask a question also in the chat if that's easier. Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. And just to say, I don't know if we were super clear about it, Joe and I will be leading this course, and Lottie is also supporting us with the technical side of things, like setting up breakout rooms and things like that during the session. So just to make clear, and Lottie took part in a course of the same name essentially, but probably a little bit different, that happened last year and was 10 weeks long actually. Any other questions? Anything anyone would like to know, either about the content matter or?
I was going to ask what Lottie asked, actually. That was what I was going to, so yeah, how it was going to run, but you've answered that.
I'm curious and would love to hear from Fran Tamsin and Jay Patel. What draws you to consider this workshop? What is it you would like to get out of it?
I think I definitely deal with it very badly, and it's getting worse. I think as I get older, it's getting worse, and I'm finding I'm sort of butting heads with everybody in the house, and everyone else seems to be okay, but it's upsetting me. I'm just getting very overwhelmed by things and not dealing with it in a particularly good way, but not really, just keeping on doing the same things. So I'm trying to, maybe try and find ways of dealing with it differently. But yeah, I don't really know how to do that. So I'm just trying to look at different options. Because I think, and as the children get older and they become teenagers, it's only going to get harder for everyone.
So would more self-knowledge, self-awareness as a starting point be helpful to you?
Yeah.
Because I think that is one of the things that we can deliver.
Yeah, that would be good.
And also,
go on.
Okay. Many times when we're in a situation and something's happening and we get activated, oftentimes we immediately just react.
Yeah.
And I'm a parent myself, and it's possible that I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I just behaved like my mother or my father. And I think this is one of the things that shows me that I was basically just operating in some kind of autopilot mode. Of course, nothing truly new or creative comes out of this. Many times it's just a continuation of what was already there.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been about it. Marshall Rosenberg also talked about it, increasing the gap between something's happening and I do something. So I actually get a chance to even choose, how do I want to respond? Where do I want to come from? What do I want to focus on? What's important in a situation? Or give empathy to myself, give empathy to the other person, things like that. And so then creating the room to do something that really has the potential to create a very different outcome. Yeah. And I also saw Jay Patel's question. We've kind of talked about this, and I want to just go over it again briefly. And I don't know if you're actually male or female, but that shall not matter. Want to know more about what the course will look like, sound like, etc. And I just want to say they're going to be 2-hour sessions, and we will focus a lot on practice. Yeah. So there will be interactions with other participants, some input from us, journaling questions, some role plays potentially, and yeah, and I don't know. I think for the rest, in terms of content, as I said, it'll be based on NVC and neuroscience and also somatic practices, and for more, I think we will see if there's other questions or other things we want to explore before I reiterate everything I've tried to say before. Yeah.
It might be worth saying, as a clarification of how things run, that each session will have a broadly similar structure. There'll be settling in, there'll be a little bit of input, there'll be at least 20 minutes, maybe longer, in a breakout room, prefaced by some journaling in most cases, as Kirsten said, just to give people the chance to connect with their own thoughts and experiences. Then after the breakout room, we come back and debrief and just extract some powerful bits of learning, maybe a little bit more input, another somatic practice perhaps, into a breakout room, back again to debrief. And then we'll wrap up at the end with some suggestions, excuse me, about what we encourage and invite you to do between one session and the next, just to keep the flame alive and to continue building your awareness.
Yeah.
I'm just looking, Jay Patel, here to know more about, find out about regulating the nervous system. Yes, we certainly will be looking at that.
Yeah. And just to say a few words about that, there's roughly two ways we regulate our nervous system. One is I call top down. This is copied from Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score. And it's the idea of mindfully observing what is happening in our body. So the regulation comes from letting things unfold and giving space and going to this kind of slightly observing place in our mind where we can observe inside of us what's happening. So this is a lot of what we practice in meditation. And then the other way I call, or also borrowed from Bessel, bottom up, which is the idea of directly engaging our nervous system through things that we do with our body in a different way, like the breath. So how we engage our breath directly affects our nervous system. Just as an example, longer out breaths stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, so stimulate a kind of relaxing and slowing down. And longer in-breath, or the in-breath in general, stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, so a kind of activation or acceleration. And there are other things we can do with movement and touch, and or engaging the external senses actively, like consciously looking around, seeing what's in the room, consciously touching something and feeling how something feels, consciously tasting something, like all the senses that we have. Yeah, so those are roughly the two ways, and there will be ways in which we practice this also in session. Yeah, so we think a lot about how intense something will be for people, which is also in the beginning of this Q&A, we also talked about pendulation, which is about kind of going to the place where something is stressful and also coming back. And the regulation, in most cases, these things will not be activating or stressful, because usually, well, they should be regulating the things we do. And at the same time, sometimes things can be activating. Like when we focus on the breath, I've heard people say before, when they focus on the breath in a certain area of their body, sometimes something can be stored there in some way, and then it can be activating. But also we will always do other things. And so I believe that actually learning to stay with these things in a kind of for a brief moment and find the way to come back is actually what helps build a lot of stability and resilience, instead of being completely overwhelmed and immersed in a sensation or emotion and feeling like we can't get out anymore. Yeah. So
Lottie, from your experience, how intense were the sessions on the 10-week program?
I would echo what Kirsten just said, that we get a chance to feel into something, maybe a journaling exercise, and then we get a chance to regulate our nervous system and integrate what we're learning. So there is a chance, if you want to, you can choose what you bring and how close to painful conflicts you want to go, because it's a practicing space. So
yeah.
Yes, we do encourage people to be self-protective to an extent, because it is not a therapy session. We cannot go into great depth about particular issues if they arise. So if you're bringing a situation, we ask you to bring something. It has some sort of emotional charge, but it's not really going to open the floodgates to a lot of emotional trauma. And that's a matter of each participant taking care of themselves and making choices about what they share.
Yeah. And also just seeing how much am I wanting to do this, and am I willing to hold things, knowing that not everything might be resolved in these 2 hours. And at the same time, also, of course, we are available. And I can only speak for myself. If somebody reaches out to me, I am busy. I have 2 children, and at the same time, I will always try to make time if I can. If somebody reaches out because they would like some support, I am there. I am also training to become a counselor. And I have done training also with a charity called New Pathways on trauma and how to handle that. So if there's something, I can't say that I'm the expert, because I'm not, and I don't have a lot of experience yet. And at the same time, it's not that I don't have anything that I could offer. And yeah.
Oh, Jay Patel, that sounds very accommodating, and we really would welcome you on the workshop. Are you based in the UK or somewhere else? Is the timing of the sessions a question of different time zones? Or is it just that the middle of the day is a bit
Yes,
not quite?
yes.
Go on,
No, I'm
please.
actually in the UK, so yeah, it's just my sort of schedule.
Yeah, I get it. And maybe
Yeah.
lunchtime is not necessarily the time where you want to have a deep emotional experience.
Kind of curious about um the choice of having it during the day. Is it just something that you normally do when you have these sessions, or yeah?
Well, we alternate, we experiment, and knowing that sometimes people with very young children say, I can't possibly do the evenings. I'm putting the children to bed, I'm doing this, that, and the other. Daytimes, I have more flexibility. And other people say, well, I have so many professional commitments, daytime is just not convenient for me. So
Yeah,
we please some people and make it hard for other people.
yeah. Thank you. I think that's what it is. The latter about work. It's kind of like in the day work wise for me.
Yeah.
So I'll see how it goes. But thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to seeing you next week then.
Just my battery said it's low, so I might cut out in a minute.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for letting us know. At least we know if you said.
I've not just switched it off.
And thank you either way for coming and spending this time.
Yeah, thank you. It's been useful. I've looked at them before, and it's something I'd really like to do, and I think it'd be helpful. But I have to admit, I'm quite scared by it. So things like doing role play and stuff is something I find extremely difficult. But I realise that that's what you need to be able to do in to get stuff the most out of the course.
Yeah.
But it is something I find difficult.
Mhm.
And we will try to keep the role play exercises simple so that, I mean, sometimes people can think that when they go into role play, they somehow need to start to act. And then they're like, but I can't act.
Yeah, it's more, I think I don't really know. I often don't know actually how I feel. So I don't know the answers to the questions quite often. I don't really know what's happening for me. So then I find it really hard to sort of answer questions. I think that's the problem.
So yeah, we will have different exercises, and we will not start with a role play the first week. So and I recognize that it can be quite daunting for people sometimes when, like you say, it can be difficult even to tune in and to know what's going on for you. So this is definitely something that we try to expand. There are people also, like many times when we've gone through things, because things can be so intense inside of us, we almost like shut it off. And it can be that either in parts of our body or sometimes even most of the time, we don't really feel anything. And this is part of it. So it's knowing that sometimes when we begin to do that, it can be at first things might feel a little bit more intense because suddenly we might be feeling something that before in some ways we had kept a lid on. And at the same time, we want to give you the tools so that it will not be overwhelming, so that you can kind of begin to notice these things, and at the same time return to places that actually help you stay grounded and stay calm and continue to know that, okay, this is just a sensation. I don't need to freak out now. Yeah, so that it can be a as gentle as possible process. Also with like sometimes it can be so hard that it can take a long time until we start to feel anything.
Yeah.
So and that is also okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Jay Patel, the sessions will be recorded, but only the parts of them that are with the whole group. So we don't record individual breakout rooms.
And yes, the attendees will receive the recordings. So
Yeah.
this one probably actually I want to make publicly available because maybe it will be interesting also for other people who haven't signed up to this. But the sessions that we have later on, the course sessions, will only be available to the participants. Or we make them only available to participants. Yes, please, Fran.
Yes, I was going to ask, there's another Quaker called Chapel Kabir who has signed up for this course, I think, but he works. I mean, he wouldn't be able to spare 2 hours off in any day, I don't think, unless he was on leave. And so I was going to say, it is being recorded, Chapel. You can look at it somewhere. I don't know where. Where would he find this recording?
I mean, this one I will make available. I haven't seen that Chapel Kabir signed up to the main course.
I found out when I did, and when he came to the last. No, did he come? He certainly was wanting to come to the last one with Joe and you.
Yeah,
But
there was a taster session, I think. Do you mean that?
probably.
Yeah. Yeah. To sign up to the full course, another sign up is required, I think.
Well, he asked me to tell him what happened today. You know what.
Oh, okay.
And I just said, well, and now you were recording it. I'm just wondering how he will access that recording.
Yeah, so what I will do after this, once it's available, I will take the recording and actually upload it on YouTube, and I will share the YouTube link in a follow-up email. And so you are welcome to pass it on to him.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jay Patel, answering your question, why are we recording? it's because we know that people are busy. They don't necessarily find the time to attend every session, but we do want to make as much available to them as possible.
Yeah.
So
And yeah, go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, so that they can catch up and still feel part of the program.
Yeah.
And the breakout rooms are not recorded, so that it's easier to be more frank in the breakout rooms.
Yeah. Or to also just know that yeah, your private, like private things, you can share private things and it's not going to be shared widely. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else anyone would like to know?
Where can we sign up for the course?
I will again, thank you, Jay Patel, for coming. I will share a link again in the follow-up email to sign up.
Yeah, thank you.
That will give it to you.
Thank you.
That's what I'm quickly.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was really helpful.
Yeah, thank you for coming as well,
Thank
Tamsin.
you. Bye.
Tamsin.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Tamsin.
Bye.
Okay. If you have any further questions, Fran, I think now's the time. Otherwise, I have the sense it might be time to close and
Not exactly a question, but you did imply, you did say sort of about 10 minutes ago that you would like to hear from us all why we've come. And you didn't
oh
butt
yeah.
in. So I don't know if it's of any help to you at all, but I'm a Quaker and I missed my local group, my local Quaker meetings course on NV, nonviolent communication. I was very sorry about that because they thought it was wonderful, the one with Marshall Rosenberg, and they went through it together in groups, and I wasn't around in the right place and I didn't realize it'd be so good. So when this came up through Dorking Quakers, I have to say, which I've had some connection with, and they advertised this, Chapel and I thought it would be like catching up with that course, like doing it again, maybe going through Marshall's book or something, I don't know what, but so that's why I signed up. And I realize now that it's nothing to do with Quakers, nobody else is a Quaker, but it was something that the Quakers benefited from enormously. And I don't know where everyone else has come from, how they found the course or whatever, but that's how I found it. And I suppose why I think it might be valuable to me is because I think the main conflicts in my life are with my two older sisters, whom I don't see very often, but I feel a very great frustration with, and I know that's in me, and it's only once come to the surface as an actual row, which was absolutely disastrous on Boxing Day, and we've recovered from that now. But you know, I'll never forget it, and this is because I expressed. Something things came to the top of the pile, you know, top of the iceberg, and I expressed my frustration very badly. And so I think, well, obviously I can't do that. I've just got to deal with the way I feel. So that's me.
Okay, thank you.